You're listening to Recover. I'm Sierra Frost, and today I'm sitting with Kerry Steuart. Thanks for being here today, Kerry.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. So I know we met practicing yoga
Yes.
in Kansas, and I remember really just being drawn to the simplicity of the style that you led in, and then learning later on that you did work with veterans. So to start off, when you hear the word recovery, what comes to mind, or how does that relate to your life?
That's a lifelong journey because I have a family of addicts. So alcohol and drugs have always been a role in my family. So for me personally, growing up, I tried to stay away from alcohol as much as possible. But then I would say over the last few years, it's been not more of the alcohol or the drugs, but more of a mental state because of the trauma that I have faced in my lifetime. So.
Okay. What types of things, and actually, I want to take a moment and address that's rare. So when you were a kid or a younger person and tried to stay away from alcohol and drugs, knowing that addiction ran in your family, was that a conversation that you had, or was that kind of your own decision?
I would say it was primarily my own decision. Tomorrow's my 28th anniversary with my wife, and this is a discussion that we've had our entire life. So we have known each other since we were probably 15 or 16. And so she's aware of my family, she's been around my family, so those are things that we look at collectively, as a couple and say, what is it we can do in our life to make it better? And so a lot of times we look at people, we want to emulate them, we want to be like them, but why is it we really want to be like that person? Is it because they're popular? Is it because they're rich, or because they're famous? And to me, it's because they were sober, or I felt like they were successful, or they had a great marriage, or they seemed genuinely happy. And they weren't looking for some kind of superficial or artificial stimulation to satisfy their needs. Long term, those people in my life I really admire and really respected. So to me, it's definitely a conversation that I didn't have with a lot of other people, maybe friends and maybe a few colleagues, but it was primarily just my wife and how we wanted to raise our family and what we wanted different for our lives.
That's so beautiful. And I think for me, and I know a lot of listeners will relate to this, I didn't really comprehend or think of consciously addiction patterns that ran in my family. I didn't know about a lot of mental health patterns that ran in my family until I was, mid 20s, 30s. And so it's really important, I think, to be having these conversations within our families to say, hey, this is something that you're predisposed to,
Right.
And this is how it shows up. And these are ways, steps that we have taken, or things that you could try if it comes up for you as well, so
Right.
that we're taking a preventative approach versus a reactive one.
Our family was raised a little bit different. I always wanted my kids to be independent and learn from their experiences and learn from things in life and not be manipulative and really controlling. I had certain rules and guidelines and things like that, but I knew that when you learn from those experiences, then you gain so much more wisdom, right? And me trying to control and manipulate it really isn't going to help the situation as much. So there's just certain things we never had in our house. We never had alcohol growing up until much later in life. We never had soda. So our kids weren't really exposed to a lot of things. They probably didn't realize unless they went to other people's houses and there was soda and a lot of junk food and things like that. So we generally ate healthy. We eat a lot more healthier now. We're more aware and understand. But I think eliminating part of that exposure until later on in life also allows them the time to mature and to grow. And it's one of those things of you can truly lead by example as much as possible. That is really going to make the biggest impact on your family and your friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. Humans learn very well by observation. Very well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So what other things would you say that you have recovered from, or maybe are still in recovery from now?
Well, definitely I would say, I have to say, and be completely, totally honest and blunt, is the thoughts of suicide. I was in the military for 8 years. I was medically discharged um, in '99. I went in the military because there really wasn't a lot of opportunity in the early '90s, late '80s in Oklahoma. Um, the economy had just really slumped and went down, and so to me, the military was the best option. So I joined in '99 or '91, went to Biloxi, and then after that, I went to Omaha, and then from Omaha, I was in Korea for a year, and then in Fort Walton Beach. And during the time in Omaha is when I went to the Gulf War, and I went over there numerous times. And the first time when I returned home, I weighed about 135 pounds. I was vomiting randomly. Was really nauseous, lightheaded. I just started developing these kind of odd symptoms. And then they developed in debilitating migraines. And by the time that I went to Korea, I was missing work occasionally, and then on my days off, I was having to go to the ER to, figure out what I could do to resolve these migraines and things like that. Eventually, I started developing leg pain and flu-like symptoms, and so in '99, I just could not do my job anymore. I physically could not. They would send me on TDY, which is temporary duty assignment, and they would send me out to different locations, and I would become so ill and so sick that I wasn't able to work. And they're like, you cannot do your job anymore. So basically, they put me above a medical review board, and I was discharged. And the thing is, I really thought that I was going to stay in the military until I retired. I thought I was going to be in there for 20 years plus. And so all the men older than me and I guess uncles, grandpas and all that have always served in the military. Every single, even on my mom's side, the male served in the military. And I think it was just part of, I felt like civic duty, an opportunity to connect with the community. And I feel like that's still part of my DNA today, that I want to give back to the community as much as possible. And I want to serve my community. And I feel like that is very important to who I am and really what makes me who I am. So I was medically discharged, and then I started developing really bad leg pain about the late 90s. And so between the headaches and the leg pain and all these other things, and it's taken the government years to kind of analyze what's going on. I want to say it's maybe been 2 years. I'm really bad with dates and time frame, but about 2 years ago they finally diagnosed me with fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And they believe that it's an exposure in immunizations from being in the Gulf War. So that plays a role on me, every day. When days, like for example, yesterday I had a friend that was in from Kansas City. He's traveling from Kansas City to California and back, and I got up and I didn't feel good. I really was it's kind of irritable. It's hard to move. It's hard to function. But you want to be there for your friends. You want to be there for your family. And there's so many times that we have driven to Oklahoma to go to weddings or certain events, and I can't leave the hotel room. I'm stuck in the hotel room because I just do not feel well. So part of the recovery is dealing with and understanding what's going on in my body. And it's very difficult when you don't have a lot of that control. I really try to find a balance between health and wellness and diet, the spiritual aspect of it, the mental aspect of it. But even when I feel like I'm doing my best, there's days that I can't get out of bed until in the afternoon. And those are very discouraging. It causes a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of other traumas related to that. And then I would have to say a lot of it is the conscience of what occurs when you're in war scenarios. During the time you're serving, you're doing what you need to do, but later on down the road, those events cause nightmares, they cause trauma, they cause a lot of residual issues that you don't even realize are going to occur possibly for the rest of my life. So recovery is an ongoing battle. It's not anything that I would say, you're going to flip a switch and it's going to go completely away. It's those things that each and every day I have to retrain and train my brain. I have to get up every morning and figure out a way to motivate myself, to excite myself, to do something for the community, do those things that help me. But then I have to realize that certain days I'm not capable of doing any of that. Mm-hmm. And I have to be okay with that.
So many aspects of what you're talking about, I think, are extremely common and relatable. So the loss of control is something, whether it's your health or you're in an abusive situation, or you have this identity to being of service, and sometimes you can't show up as that person, right? These are things that we often don't control, and so that's really difficult to come to a space of acceptance of, this is where I'm at, and maybe I'm a 2 out of 10 today, but I'm going to be the best damn 2 out of 10 that I can be.
Exactly.
And accepting that that's good enough, and that's okay, and you're still valuable to do that. And another thing you really touched on in relation to understanding mental health, a lot of people don't really know the definition of a mental health illness, or I would even call it a mental health challenge.
Right.
And what that means is that your mental health is coming in the way of being able to engage in life the way you want to or normally would.
Right.
So I've known since the second I met you and your wife Tammy kind of came. I was organizing these yoga workshops, and so you guys came in, and it was like this energy of like, all right, everyone is gonna come in to this space, and this is your home, and we are here, and I will hold you in this nest, and we will spend this hour together. And so I knew immediately that community is an extremely important value to you, and so that the description that you gave is so wonderful for people to understand what mental health challenges really feel like. Is like, this is something that's important, and I can't get to it. And sometimes that might be responsibilities around the house, it might be raising children, it might be volunteering, it might be showing up to work, it might be showing up to yoga or exercise or biking or hiking or whatever it is that's important to different people. So I just wanted to touch on that, because that's an important description.
Yes. Acceptance has been an ongoing challenge, right? And one of the biggest challenges, when you accept yourself, then you can begin to accept others as well. And I would say, that's one of the biggest keys. The other one of the biggest keys is forgiveness. To forgive any of the things in the past, some of the guilt, the shame. Even at the time I was doing my duty to the country and serving, later on in the conscious, it kind of becomes a different view, right? And so I think that's very important for all of us in our community and ourselves, is to be able to trust ourselves, love ourselves unconditionally, and accept ourselves, so we can begin to do that to others in the community. So we don't build up walls or barriers within our own life and in the life of others, because that is one of the biggest factors, I would have to say, that deteriorates any relationship. For example, if we work together and you did something to upset me, or maybe I wasn't feeling good that day, maybe I had a migraine, or I had a flare of my chronic pain, and you did something that just irritated me, and I just got really pissed off at you, and I didn't forgive you, and the next day you come in, I'm still mad at you, and I don't forgive you, and that walls and those barriers build up. We'll never be able to have a really good, trusting relationship. And that's professionally, right? That's personally, that's on any level. But if I'm able to understand, you know what, she's doing her best, I'm doing my best, I love her, I accept her, I forgive her. Even though you may not ever intentionally have done anything to hurt me, a lot of times we don't see that within ourselves. And that's the same thing within ourselves. We look back at our past and everything that we did wrong instead of all those amazing things that we've done right. And we just want to view those negative aspects over and over and over, instead of, oh my gosh, all the wonderful things that we've done for so many people. And when you start each day fresh, new, whole, and complete, it really gives you that opportunity to forgive, to love, and to accept. To me, it's still a challenge, because when I wake up in excruciating pain or a migraine day after day after day, all those things from those pasts still occur. So that's part of the mindfulness journey, right? It's part of being in the moment and not focusing on the future or focusing on the past, but just being right here with where I'm at.
We are so largely impacted to do the opposite too. We train ourselves to focus on what we don't have or what we don't look like or what we don't do, and we're
Right.
so encouraged. We're like bombarded by stimuli,
Yes.
from billboards to our cell phones to our computers to, it's just everywhere in our culture. And so we're good at what we practice, and when we
Right.
practice that, we come to these spaces where it's so easy to be down on ourselves. I almost think for most of my clients, they describe that it's easier to give the benefit of the doubt to someone else than it is to themselves. But to be clear, we can't give what we don't have first.
Right.
And in that way, self-compassion is the number one predictor of mental health wellness. And that is really the doorway to being, to all of these things that you're talking about, being able to be in this moment, to understand that we're not alone, that many people are experiencing suffering right along with us, whether it looks the same or not, to meet each other in this space of, hey, you're doing the best you can, I'm doing the best we can, let's see what we can do together. And I know something you mentioned before was the idea of the victim versus
Right.
the hero, and how we tell our stories. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means for you?
Absolutely. I'm going to give you a real short example, and then I'm going to go to a more longer example. My wife and I love to travel, and so we like to see some things that are the same and some things that are new, but we like to go out to a place called Kirby Cove. It's just over the San Francisco Bridge. And we were in Kansas City, and we would load up all our camping gear in one bag, and then all our clothes and stuff in another bag, and we'd get out there and we'd rent a car. And so our first stop is Whole Foods, and then we go to Safeway or one of the other places and get like firewood and ice and things like that for our ice chest. And I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco, but the traffic is crazy. Everything's packed, and then you go in the grocery store, and the parking is like really tough, really narrow. And then same thing in the aisles. You're going down the aisles, and like it's hard for people to maneuver and with their shopping carts and grab their groceries. But what I noticed was my first journey there, as I'm going around people, they don't say I'm sorry, or they don't say excuse me, but they say thank you. They're thanking you for moving out of their way, right? And it really hit home to me. And then as I kind of studied and realized that more, that so many times when we tell the story, we play the role of a victim. And we blame everything that occurred right now on everybody else. We blame it on our past, we blame it on our spouse, we blame it on work. And the situation we're in is truly every decision that we've made in the past has brought us here together. And I say that so many times in my yoga classes, right? Because it's so true. So we need to be responsible. We need to be accountable for our own beliefs, our own behaviors. And so I can't blame anybody else but myself for joining the military and for the circumstances that I've encountered, right? It's truly was, I'm the one that signed the form and said I'm going to go in. I'm the one that made that an opportunity. So everything in your life, every single day, it's your perspective on how you see and view it. So I go and lead yoga, mindfulness, meditation, health and wellness to an organization called Warriors Ascent out of Kansas City. And it's a week-long cohort for essential personnel, veterans, and people like that who've suffered trauma. And one of the biggest things that I want them to get out of it, and anybody listening to this podcast, is that when you tell your story, that you're no longer telling your story as a victim, but you're telling your story as a hero. That you've truly transformed who you are and how you perceive yourself and how you portray that to others. So being as vulnerable as you can, that there's no blame, there's no guilt, there's no shame, but you are truly that superhero in your life. And for each of us, that means a lot of different things, and at different times in our life, it could be something completely, totally different. But if you get anything out of this, is that you find the opportunity for hope for all mankind, right? Because that's one of the biggest contributing factors to suicide. And then the other one is that you're not the victim anymore, that you figure out how to become that hero.
Beautiful. I know for me, something really clicked when you were just talking. There was a moment in my life, really early on in my recovery, that I was just so down on myself, but I was also kind of becoming aware of different belief systems or behaviors that had stemmed from the trauma that I had experienced. And I went on the internet and I just Googled like statistics of people who've experienced childhood sexual abuse. And I started reading, and I was like, well, I'm not homeless. Well, I'm not addicted to any of those things. I'm not dead, right? And I did all these calculations. I like to over intellectualize things. So I did all these calculations, and I thought, wow, well, I am like one of the 5% of people who have had these experiences that I'm still here.
Right.
And it really helped to shift into that hero mode of like, maybe all of these things don't have to be true, because the internet is telling me I look this way, but in real life I look this way.
Absolutely.
And it gave me that sort of fuel of confidence to go on. What was that like for you? Was there a first step, or I'm sure many different steps, where you kind of decided to consciously shift into hero mode?
I would have to say that part of my whole life, I feel like there's part of me that's been a leader. Like I used to manage a restaurant, then I own a restaurant. I've done a lot of like IT consulting and trainings and things like that in my background. So my background's really diverse. I've done things from cybersecurity to, implementation of, ticket and remedy systems and things like that. So I would have to say that part of me always knew that I was a hero, but part of me didn't understand that why I was still playing this victim. Part of me didn't understand, like, why is it I wake up with these horrible migraines and I'm vomiting? Or why is it I'm driving to work and I'm having to vomit? That I want to fix it. I want to fix this all on my own. And I think, not to segue too far off, but every hero needs a support system. We all need a support system. So whatever you can find with that, either therapy, yoga, mindfulness, meditation, however you incorporate all of that into your life, I would have to say helped. I'm going to say that I went to the war injury, I forget the entitled name, but it's in New Jersey for VA, and I went out there for a whole week. They're the ones that said you should do yoga, tai chi, biofeedback, which is really a version of meditation. And my oldest daughter had been telling me that I should do yoga. And so I started my journey really with mindfulness. I went and did biofeedback in Leavenworth, Kansas at the VA hospital. Started studying what that really meant, and like, well, I don't need to look at a TV screen, and I don't need to have somebody monitoring my oxygen and my pulse to know that this works. I can feel this in my body, right? After 20 minutes of me doing meditation or biofeedback, right, I felt better. I felt relaxed. I felt calm. I was like, this really works, right? So I think through our life, there's things that happen in our life, but we don't understand why they're happening when they're happening. So there's not just one aspect that really made a difference. There's a bunch of little people and things that have helped make a contribution to put me up where I'm at. So I was doing meditation and mindfulness for about 6 months, and then that's the first time I stepped and did a yoga class. And when I doing the yoga class, I was thinking about beautiful places. I was thinking about the ocean. I was thinking about the beach. My mind's doing all these things, just like mindfulness, within the yoga class. And so the breath work was already there. And so then I couldn't do anything I felt like it was more of a one-on-one. The instructor's having to come to the back of the room, right? Because the first time you go to yoga, you want to be in the back, you want to be in the corner, you want to be away. Like, give me away. I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt bad for her because she's having to run to the back and help me, like, put a block underneath me and a strap and a blanket and, like, get me into all these postures. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for this lady. But I walked away and I was like, wait, all those things that I've really wanted to feel within my community of acceptance and unconditional love, I felt within that community, within the yoga room. And so I'd have to say that was really the pinnacle click for me, and the switch that turned on that what I needed within my community, that I was not, you get it from your family. They love you, they care for you, they're always going to be for you. I have the most wonderful family ever. But a lot of times your friends don't understand, like, why you don't show up or why you don't feel well. They see you, I look physically fine, I look healthy, but I have all these other elements that are occurring. And so I would have to say the VA kind of enticing me to do that type of work, but figuring out on my own the journey of what mindfulness meant to me, what meditation meant to me, what yoga really means to me. That was probably the biggest one that actually helped me transform from the victim into the hero. And that allowed me to start leading yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and doing things for my community on a whole new level that I never ever thought I would do. Mm-hmm. Nothing imaginable. Because, when you're in a restaurant, you're feeding people, right? And you're eating, and they're happy, and they come back, and you've got a sense of community because you have your regulars. But when people call you or text you, especially with the program of Warriors Ascent, every single time I do that program, somebody tells me I have saved their life from either suicide or somebody else's life or somebody in their family. And that makes it all worthwhile. That makes everything that you do and all the hard work and all the dedication worth it when somebody tells you that you've saved their life.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of times we overthink things. And statistically, it's true that people with high IQs can experience more mental health. Not that that matters, but the point is that our minds often get us to these spaces, mm-hmm. and we think that our minds are going to be able to get us out.
Right.
But really, just like you said, we need the support. And for us as whole beings, as human beings with brains, we also have these bodies. And I think something that you do really well and that you've been mentioning is that there needs to be an incorporation of not just the mental health aspect, but that the bodies also feel emotions, they
yes.
store emotions, they process emotions, and so we need help from the body to move through recovery. It can't just be the mind anymore.
Right. I can give you an example of that. So I have neurology and I have pain clinics, and the VA has all these different departments in Kansas City, and so I was seeing a bunch of different physicians there, and they were really suggesting that I relocate. And so I'm going to say May, and I'm really bad with all the dates, but we had a house in Kansas City and we put it up and sold it to an investor within like 3 days. And they're like, we want to close at the end of the month. And so we knew that we were going to buy a van, but we didn't realize we were going to live in this van for 5 months, right? My wife was traveling with work, and she comes back and she's like, you have to purge. That everything that you own clothes-wise and everything I own clothes-wise has to fit into that van with the 2 dogs. And it's like a reality moment, right? And so everything that, all my summer clothes go in this little plastic white container. I have 2 of those, and then I have one for winter clothes. And so we got everything ready, hopped in the van, and moved into that thing like July 13th. And I traveled. We went all the way up to Whistler, Canada, and then back, went through Yellowstone and got back to Kansas City. And so I felt really good. I had some bad days, I had some stressful days, things like that, but generally overall I felt a lot better. I get back to Kansas City and I felt horrible that week. Horrible. I left a week later and I went up to Tremblant, Canada, came back, and then I felt even worse. And so then I really realized that, and nothing against Kansas City, I think it's an amazing, beautiful city. It has so much to offer. But for me, physically, it causes my pain, my inflammation, and everything to be at such a higher level that it's toxic, that it's unhealthy. So when we left and came to Colorado, I have felt really good. The days, I would say overall, I felt so much better, but I still have days when the barometric pressure fluctuation changes, or when a storm comes in, like I know that day and the next day, like I'm just going to stay home. Right? And so part of that journey is understanding what makes you feel and why you feel the way you do. So I always wanted to be in the city. I always wanted to be convenient. I loved hopping on the bus and driving and taking it to the VA hospital. If anybody listens to this and they're veteran, they know what parking's like. They know how frustrating. You can drive to the VA and you're going to spend another 15 to 30 minutes finding a park. And so it was so awesome. I could hop on the bus. It'd be a 20-minute ride over there. I'd get out. They'd let me off at the door. And then when I'm done with my appointment, I hop back in and I take the bus back. I love being able to walk to the grocery store. I love being able to walk to all the amazing parks and venues and all the things that they offer in Kansas City. And that's what I wanted. It's always what I wanted. But relocating out here into the mountains, I know this is your first time here. And just like you said, how we made you feel welcome at that yoga event outdoors, I hope you feel the same thing when you walked into this home. I hope that's an energy that my wife and I always portray, is that we want to nurture you. We want you to feel at home. We want you to feel welcome. But coming out here, I realize this is what I need. And I think a lot of times in our life, we really get confused on what we want, and we really focus on those wants and wants and wants, and not being in tune with the feelings that we have of what we need. So now as soon as I drive into the city, I feel my anxiety. I feel the tension. I feel, the headaches. I feel everything start to get up just as soon as I get into the traffic. And I know a lot of it isn't me, but people in the city are in a hurry. They're in a rush. They're going to pull over in front of you at the last minute, and I'm maybe driving a big van and I can't stop as quickly, and you just feel a lot of tension. But out here, you feel the serenity. You're able to connect with nature. I mean, it just smells amazing, right? From the pines and the evergreens and all the different forests. So part of that healing journey is really allowing yourself to become in tune and in touch with who you are and diving deep. So if I ask you today, how are you doing, and you just say good, well, I'd like for you to be a little bit more descriptive and tell me exactly why do you feel good, and what is it in your life that makes you feel good, right? And I think that's what we need to do internally, is be in touch with those feelings of why do we feel good, or why do we feel amazing, or maybe today, why do we not feel as good as we did yesterday? And how can we go through this and be mindful and be present?
Yeah, and sometimes even not knowing the answer to why, but
Right.
recognizing I have no idea how or why, but I know this feeling.
Right.
Right? I know this energy.
Yes.
Right?
And I think that's true. We don't understand always. Like, my wife now, when we go into the city, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to go back to the mountains. And she probably doesn't always understand why. But she knows that she feels better in the mountains. Yeah. And that's where she belongs, and that's where she should be, not in the city. And it's a unique shift at 50 that we have kind of redefined who we are. And I always say that you do not have to have a conventional life to be happy. We can truly be happy living in the van with the two, medium-sized dogs and enjoying life. Or we can be happy living in this house. I think it's a lot has to do with contentment. And you're right, a lot of times we don't understand at that time, in that moment, what it is, but once we've kind of escaped. So once I escaped and got out of and I'm not going to call Kansas City toxic environment, but for me, that Midwest area is very toxic for my health, right? Not Kansas City. Kansas City is an amazing place. The people are amazing. There's so much to offer. But me being there really hinders my health until I get away from that. And then it takes me a while now to understand, right? It's been almost a year, right, that I've been traveling and touring, and it made me realize that those were my wants. Those weren't my needs,
And there's something that I often refer to in my work as the child test. And what that means is if we were a young person, we'll just throw out the age of 5, we wouldn't need to know, well, why do I feel better in the woods than what I do in the city?
Right.
And what is this barometric pressure thing going on? We would just know this feels good.
Right.
I feel the color yellow,
Yeah.
or or whatever.
Exactly.
It wouldn't necessarily make intellectual sense, but we would do it anyway because we know that is what feels
Right.
good. And then we grow up and we have all of these ideas of what we want, or what we should want, or what we
Yes.
do, and they can be really limiting to
Yes.
us. Can you talk a little bit more? I'm shifting towards the idea of suicide. I want to give some space to be able to normalize that experience, because the truth is very, very many of us feel suicidal often. And that doesn't mean that we have to act on
Right.
it or glorify it. But even on a super basic level, I might be, getting my kids up to go to school and they spill cereal all over
Right.
themselves, and then we're late and they miss the bus, and then I have to drive them to school, and then I'm late to work, and then I spill coffee in my car, and at one point in time all of these things build up, and I'm just like, gosh, I wonder what it would be like to not have to deal with all of
Absolutely.
these things. So on a super basic level, that's extremely common. Can you describe a little bit about what that's
Yeah.
like for you?
So for me, it's and I'll talk about it in three little kind of aspects. The first one is just like when I go to sleep at night. A lot of times when I wake up, and then the last aspect is going to be healthy boundaries. So the first aspect is that so many times I go to bed and I'm so tired and I'm in so much pain and so much agony, and it's just been a struggle for me just to make it through the day, that sometimes I feel like I'm going to sleep and never wake up. I feel like this body cannot handle that amount of pain any longer, and this was the last day that I'm ever going to live. That I will not wake up tomorrow, because it's so exhausting. And that's what a lot of people that suffer with fibromyalgia and chronic pain and PTSD and all these things combined together, their days take a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes more than what people even realize. And so by the time I go to bed, a lot of times, it's not always that I wish, but a lot of times when I go to bed, I feel like I'm not going to wake up because this body has given everything it has already. It's expired. Then a lot of times I wake up, and that's a different story. That's more of like when you sit with the cereal with the kids. I wake up and my body's numb. I can't move my legs. I can't move my arms. And when I go to do, it's so painful and so exasperating that, I'm in bed for an hour to 2 hours before I can get up and just go use the bathroom and kind of move and get going. Those are the days that, I wish that I wasn't in this pain, and that if I was not alive, that I wouldn't have to suffer anymore, right? That it would be better for my wife, it'd be better for my grandkids, it'd be better for everybody involved, because when your body's in that much pain, that's when you start feeling the guilt and the shame and the disappointment of, I can't make it to the kids' play, or I can't do this event, and I know I told my kids I was going to do this, but I can't. And so those are the days that you struggle with, should I even be alive, right? And so all that being said, I've realized the biggest aspect and the biggest help for me to find hope, right? Because I feel like that's the biggest contributing factor to suicide, is we lose hope. We lose hope for everything about it. There's no way out. So many times you're exhausted, you're tired, you just want to give up, you just want to quit. And the reason why is because we haven't set up healthy boundaries in our life. If we had healthy boundaries on all aspects of our life, the majority of the time we wouldn't be so tired. We wouldn't be so exhausted. We wouldn't be so worn out. We could have that balance between work, professional and personal life, and between our romance and our relationships and our kids and all those things. And so it's saying no to a lot of things, but saying yes to a lot of things as well, and not overextending ourselves. So when I get in those modes, I'm just looking for some kind of joy, some kind of excitement, some kind of flavor that's just going to make me want to get out of bed and want to live life and want to be happy. And so I've realized that I need to set healthier boundaries, and I need to find a balance. So the days that I feel really good and feel really energized, not to overdo it, to still really limit myself to a 30-minute walk in the morning and then a 30-minute walk in the evening, to make sure that I'm not consuming foods that are unhealthy or that cause inflammation, to make sure that I'm getting my turmeric and things like that. So then the next day, if I don't feel as well, then, maybe it's one walk a day, or maybe it's no walks, right? But it's being okay with all those aspects and finding those boundaries within my life that really serve me and, of course, my wife and my family.
Yeah, and so often I think boundaries get confused. We do a poor job in America of teaching social emotional
Yes.
intelligence, and so we think of being selfish, like taking care of ourselves
Right.
as being selfish, when really it's not at all. It's like we said earlier, we can't give
Right.
what we don't have. So I definitely really appreciate the idea of having boundaries in that way.
And if anybody's listening to this, I want you to realize that self-care is not selfishness. If you have to take a time out to go do what you need to do. And I tell people this all the time when I'm teaching workshops and teacher training and Warriors Ascent, that if all you have is 3 to 5 minutes to go meditate, to go be mindful, to take yourself away from that toxic situation, whatever it may be, give yourself that time to go reflect and to go meditate and to change that threshold. And so never ever think that self-care is selfishness, because it's not. It's really giving you the opportunity to find the balance. And then once you get that energy or that enthusiasm, or you have that balance, then you actually have more to give to other people and yourself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I have a friend and mentor named Juanita Robertson, and she replaces the word selfish with self-full.
Yeah.
F-U-L-L, full. And it really, I mean, it seems like such a simple shift.
Right.
But it's everything. When you start to say, oh, I'm having a self-full care day.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to fill up.
Yes.
And that feels exciting and different. I don't know if this question is completely off the wall, but as you were talking, something I know about you is you oftentimes like to eat dessert first. Is that related to this topic or not?
I mean, you could, so I say yoga's for everybody, and everything you do in your life is yoga, right? It's just how you implement it. Uh-huh. So what I think it is that part of living life to the fullest and enjoying the moment to the fullest is, what is it that you really enjoy about that meal? And so mindfulness, there's a lot of aspects, and we don't have to talk a lot about that, but part of that mindfulness is being in the moment, not focusing on the past or the future or whatever. I really love dessert. I love it. That's the best part of the meal. So why not enjoy the best part first, and then I can just take the other food home with me. So last night you saw my post, and we ate at a restaurant right here in Evergreen, and they had bread pudding with chocolate chips, which is like, I love chocolate. So I ate half of it, and then I ate half of my hamburger, and then I brought the other half home. So I think, depending on your journey and where you're at, why not indulge in the things that make you really happy, that bring you joyful, right? To me, being in nature is one of the things that bring me and my wife so close together, and the dogs, and that's why we like going and taking the dogs on 2 hikes a day if we can. If we can do 3 or 4, whatever. I limit myself to a 30-minute walk. That's it. So people's like, it's not really a hike. But to me, it's a hike because it's a lot of energy. Like, if I do an hour, then I'm spent. I can't do anything else the rest of the day. So I have to do everything in moderation. So that's one of the things that we enjoy the most, is being in nature and being hiking. And we love traveling. And one of the things I love is dessert. And I want to consume it first. So that's my appetizer, is dessert.
I love that metaphor, though, and not even metaphor, example of self-care, because we think a lot of times that self-care has to be this big thing, or it has to cost money, like going to the spa or getting a massage or whatever. And the pattern that we have is like, we put it off. Well, I'll do that later. I'll take care of you first, and then I'll take care of me, right? And so we put off the dessert until last. Well, what if I want that now?
Right.
And can that be okay? So it's a very simple way, if you're listening and you need a permission to take care of yourself, go eat dessert first today.
well, I do it every day.
Or every day. Let's start with today. Yeah. So you've spoken a lot about your recovery process at the beginning and to now. Is there anything else you want to say about what recovery looks like for you these days?
Yes. So, I mean, a lot of it's been support with my wife. It's probably been 5 years that I haven't been able to work, I'm guessing. And it was to the point when I would go to work and I would come home and I'd sit on the couch and I couldn't get up. Physically, I could not move. I didn't have the energy to eat. I didn't have anything. And she's like, this is not what life is about. Life is not about you going to work for 8 hours and then the rest of the day you can't move. You're immobile. You can't eat. You can't get off the couch. She's like, we have got to find something. So that's when we decided that I would no longer work. So once again, I think for each of us, whatever you're really, truly struggling with, whatever that biggest, highest point is, to find support with whoever you can. whether that is, you know, a significant other, a family member, a friend, or even mental health. I have two people that I see almost on a weekly basis. One is the pain clinic in VA, and then I have a mental health specialist here. And even though I just moved here and I haven't seen her that much, she's so supportive. She's so understanding. She understands me. And she gets me. And I think having that person that's relatable is helpful. I think finding a journey, and I'm going to use yoga as a broad term, I don't want you to think that it's the beautiful skinny person in the perfect outfit that you see in the magazines, because that is completely opposite. That is a marketing, you know, I would say scheme, basically,
Manipulation. Yeah.
that America has given you. Yoga is about truly being present. It's about always growing and always changing. And I'll tell people every single time that they go to any of my workshops or anything that there's two things that yoga will do for you. Yoga is going to let you know the things in your life you do really, really well, and it's going to let you know the things in your life you really need to work on. And that's why we've refused, and a lot of times we quit going to either a physical practice, and we quit engaging in that because we don't want to change. We don't want to see those areas in our life. But that's the most important, right? The difficult conversations are the most important ones that we need to have. If I never had the difficult conversations with my wife, and she never had them with me, and we never have them within ourselves internally, we never grow, we never change, we never blossom. Mm-hmm. And those are the things, a lot of times, that we make a big deal of that are really nothing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you bring something to your spouse and you thought it was this big, huge deal, and they're like, what? That's not even, I don't even care about that. Like, so that's how it is with ourselves as well. So to kind of go back, the yoga journey started with me with mindfulness and meditation. And I believe that is the most important aspect of anybody's yoga journey. If they can find the ability to be centered, to be grounded. And so to me, what that started off was sitting on my couch, and I would put pillows underneath my knees and pillows underneath my back, and if it was the winter, to have a blanket. And I love the mountains, so I have this beautiful photo I took of Lake Tahoe, and I think Evergreen to me is just a lot like that, because the sights, the smell, you know, it's beautiful here, and we have everything basically Tahoe offers, just, you know, in a smaller version and affordable. So I would sit on the couch and I would light incense, and I would have a diffuser going, and I would use essential oils, and I would turn up the heat, make sure it's nice and warm. So I understood what mindfulness really means, and if I can just go over that just kind of high level real quickly. So the first thing is you want it to be focused on your breath. You want a belly diaphragmatic breath. You don't want it through the chest, and you want it to be kind of like an ocean wave or sinusoidal wave, where you inhale and you pause, and then you exhale and you pause and you inhale. So it's kind of coming up and down and serving you. And so, you know, if that's 4 to 10 seconds or whatever your breath is, your capacity, but you want it to be relaxing. You don't want it to cause any kind of anxiety or apprehension. And then you want to begin to observe. And if you're outdoors or indoors or wherever it is, but maybe just observe your surroundings. And maybe observe your breath and observe your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions of how you feel. And then you just begin to dive in a little bit deeper. So then after your observation, it's more of a lot of your sensations. So for example, if you are inside or outside of what you see, of what you see externally. So like right here, we have these amazing evergreens, and the sun's beginning to set, and we're in this beautiful canyon with amazing creek that's running down, and listening to the water and all those things, and the wind, and, you know, the cars that travel by. Or if you're at home, the music you're listening to. But this other step is what you begin to see internally of who you are and who you're becoming, and see yourself with love, and see yourself with acceptance, and see yourself in abundance. See yourself as a hero, no longer seeing yourself as a victim of what you hear externally. You know, once again, the cars and all the sounds of nature or music, and what you hear internally, of how you tell yourself. That begins to allow you to dive a little bit deeper and not just be desensitized. So, you know, hearing, seeing, feeling, you know, tasting, all those aspects of being present. So Can I just add a little bit more to that since I started talking about it?
Of course.
All right. So 2 examples of mindfulness that changed my life. So I get up in the morning, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm struggling. I get out of bed. I'm mad. I'm cranky. I'm irritable. I'm cussing. I'm gritting my teeth. I go to pee. Sitting in there and it feels like it's taken forever. And then I go back into bed and you know, like I'm gonna get up, take a shower, turn the shower on, and I'm thinking about, you know, why I'm in this pain. Why do I have to go through this? What is going on? Why me? I hate my body. My body hates me. I got to, you know, and then you start thinking about all the things you got to do. Okay, so I got to eat. I got to check these emails, all these to-do lists. I got a grocery list. I got all these things to do. Well, to revert that and go back into mindfulness, you get up and you take a few deep breaths before you even get out of bed, and you find gratitude. You find, I usually say 3 to 5 things that you're thankful. Well, I'm thankful that I can see, or I'm thankful that I can breathe. I'm thankful that I can actually move, even though it's painful. I'm thankful for the bed, and oh, look, there's my wife, all the things she's done for me, right? So you start finding things to be thankful, and then you go into, say, the shower, and you turn the shower on, and as you touch that water, you feel the temperature of the water. And then as you hop into the shower, you're thankful, and you become aware of the contrast of the tile floor or the carpet from in the bathroom into the shower and how that felt. And then you become more aware of the sensations of the water and how it feels on your skin and your pores and the follicles. And as you open up the body wash or the shampoo and your lather in your body, the sensations that occur of how that makes you feel and what you begin to see and what you begin to hear. And then you're just living in this moment. I'm not thinking of all the things in the past or the future. I'm thinking of this moment. You get off and you dry off in the towel, and you know, you're appreciative for all these aspects. And as you get dressed, it's mindful in this moment, right? I think the next most important analogy I use is when you get in the car. That you start the car and you think of all the little details that got that car to even start. And you grab the steering wheel and it feels better, and you're driving down the road and you're going to your destination, whether it's work, school, to see somebody, and you see nature. And you become very thankful for this moment, for this scene. And then you allow yourself to be thankful for the people around you, right? That you're more calm, and then you're not as big of a hurry, and you're not as big of a rush, and then it's okay to maybe wave or extend a smile to the person next to you. And when that idiot pulls over in front of you, right, to slam on the brakes, that you're mindful in that moment and you're not judgmental, right? And so I think, to me, that's probably one of the biggest mindful attributes that we could do, is when we're driving in our car, that we become thankful and grateful for everything about us, you know, and that we're in that moment. And our destination, we're going to get there, but we want to enjoy the journey. Part of this also has been not to focus so much on the end result. This goes against a lot of corporate with goals. Mine is more objectives. So for example, if me and you were going to Alaska and we're going to go to Anchorage, right? And I get up and you're like, what do you want to do today? Well, years ago I'd be like, we're going to go do these 20 different things, right? I'm going to come home and I'd forget like half of what I did. Well, I'm going to say, we're going to go see one thing today, and then on that way there and back we can go see maybe 2 other things, or 1 other thing there and back, right? And so what we do is we're enjoying this whole entire journey, and we're not rushing. And we've made the most of that journey to that one object, right? That one goal, if you would say. And then on the way back we see 1 other thing. So we don't try to really overtask, because we truly can't multitask. We can really truly only think about one thing at a time. We do it very fast, so that's why we think we're multitasking, but we can't. And taking all those other obstacles and minimalizing everything that I can in my life, I think has been really helpful as well. To say that we got rid of everything in our house, we did, except for this table, my tools, all the yoga props you saw downstairs, and the headboard. So when we bought this house, everything in this house is completely new and fresh. Every towel, every sheet, the comforter, every piece of furniture. We moved over to Kansas City with 2 pieces of furniture, this and that headboard in there, and that's it. So I don't think it's ever too late to reinvent yourself or redefine or enhance your life. And I don't think it's ever too late to let go of everything in your past and start completely new and fresh. And give yourself that opportunity to just wipe away everything, whether it was good or bad, But today you're going to start new, and today you're going to start whole, and today you're going to start fresh and complete. And waking up like that each and every day, no matter how much pain or suffering, will still give you an opportunity to not hold on to so many things, and to give yourself the opportunity for healthy boundaries. To understand today's going to be different than yesterday and different to tomorrow, but wherever I'm at, it is okay. It's okay that I may be in a lot of pain and a lot of agony, but I'm going to do whatever I can to serve myself and have self-care so I can serve my community.
The way you're able to articulate that really is a result of the work that you have done. Mm-hmm. And so it's very clear to me that the words that you're speaking is the practice that you have. I want to extend that a little bit for our listeners. You might be feeling like, well, I have this hero piece of me, but I also have this victim piece of me, and how do I get rid of it? And it's like this resistance, right? So if this is the hero and this is the victim, and you're like pushing and pushing and pushing on it, it gets exhausting.
Yes.
And so the invitation that I want to extend is, when you notice that, to literally out loud, you could talk to that part of yourself and say, hey, I see you, victim. Maybe I'll name you Hannah. I don't know. Hannah, the victim. No implications to anyone named Hannah listening.
Right.
Join me on this ride in the car. Tell me, what's your experience?
Right.
What's the message that you have? And a lot of times when we stop resisting and we invite those other parts of ourselves in that we've been judging, we drop into this curiosity, and what happens is the resistance goes away, and it really just kind of melts down to, okay, a lot of times the victim just wants to be seen, mm-hmm. or the angry person just wants to be seen and heard and given the time and the value, just like any other human being would want. And so give it a shot. Give it a shot to start having those conversations. Kerry, what would you say to someone listening right now who's relating to parts of your experience or all of your experience? What's the message that you would want them to have that maybe you did or didn't have before?
I would definitely say, do whatever it takes in your life as you tell your story. If I tell you my story now, and the difference if I maybe told you my story 5 years ago, was I was definitely the victim and not the hero. Today, I hope when you hear the story that it's the hero, and I would hope that anybody listening finds hope for themselves, a hope enough that they will become the hero, and that they will find empowerment, that they will find acceptance and unconditional love, and do whatever it takes to seek that help, and that it's okay to reach out to friends or family or anybody. If you're ever contemplating suicide or ending your life or the lives of others, that you stop and pause and breathe, and that you save your life and those lives of others.
Definitely. So adjust your capes as you're listening. And how can we follow you or engage in your work in the world, Kerry?
Well, my name is Kerry Steuart. That's Kerry. Last name is Steuart, Steuart. And I'm on basically every social media. I mean, I even post mindfulness on LinkedIn. So if you're not into the world of Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, I'm on all those accounts as well. You can just Google me and find my number and call me or text me or email me, and I will respond to you as soon as possible.
And you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah,
and you have an upcoming video podcast happening.
Yes,
Do you want to say more about that?
You know what? Let's just do that as a surprise.
Okay.
We'll just keep it a surprise. But I definitely want to start doing more with podcast and YouTube and engaging in that community as well. If you're in Evergreen or the surrounding areas, I will be teaching community yoga starting in June at the fire department. So all that information is definitely going to be on social media.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here, for stepping into authoring a story of heroism and sharing that with the world to impact. I appreciate your value of community, and it is so clear and potent to be around you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.